Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lexi. I'm the Director of Outreach here at KGI. And I want to kick us off and get things started today. Thank you for spending some time with us today to learn about the MSCM program at KGI. We have our two fierce leaders of this program with us today. Dean Lawrence, who's the Dean of our medical school and really helped to spearhead this program, and our new founding director of the program, Monique Williams, is with us as well. So Dean Lawrence will go through and share some slides and give you an overview of the program, and then we'll have a lot of time available at the end for Q&A. So please feel free to either chat your questions or save them up, and you can ask them yourself when we get to that time here in just a little bit. But for now, I'll introduce Dean Lawrence.
Thanks very much, Lexi. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. And I don't know about you, but I'd really love this to be in person. It'd be so much more interesting and much better if we could do it that way. But this is what life is right now. I'm going to describe briefly what we're doing with the Master of Science in Community Medicine degree. And then I, as Lexi said, would love to have your questions. Monique is also here to answer questions. She is new and getting her feet on the ground. She just started last Monday, a week ago, Monday actually. And so she's kind of learning the ropes about the program. And but I'm sure we'll jump in and have any responses that she can handle today if you'd like to address your questions to her as well. Very nice to see you. Let me just quickly run through a little bit about the program. Excuse me, it's called the Master of Science in Community Medicine. The program really includes target communities that we're trying to serve, which are underserved, underrepresented communities in really the country, although we're focusing in California to begin with. But these are communities that have high burdens of disease and difficult problems with health status. Those are our target communities. And what we're trying to do is to identify students from those communities, that's the pipeline, and bring you into a Gateway Master's program, we call it, which is a program that is the one we're talking about today, the Master of Science in Community Medicine. And it prepares you in one of two ways, either for employment back into the safety net systems that are serving those target communities, or going on to medical school or other advanced health professions education. So our program is designed to do both those things. Next slide, please. The Gateway of Master Science is in community medicine. Why are we doing it? It's really that we're dealing with the issues of health equity and the belief and the science that suggests that people who are from the communities in need are the best to serve those communities in need. There's a fair amount of science that supports that, and that's really what we're working on, is trying to address the issues of disparities in health in those communities, those target communities, as we say, and that's really what this program is directed to. Next slide, please. The mission is to prepare skilled physicians and health professionals from underserved and underrepresented communities to partner with those communities to improve their health, lower the burdens of illness, and reduce the need for medical care. So we're focused on trying to reduce the demand for medical care by doing health promotion and prevention and all the things that we can do now with the science that we have to avoid illness or lower the burdens of illness. So we have two things that can happen. One is to take care of people who are ill and injured, which is what medicine does, and take care of people's health, which is our program and what we're focusing on. Next slide. The curriculum is a 2-year curriculum. It is 54 credits. Its structure is what we call synchronous or in class, sort of together, online learning and in the community. It is not on campus. It is an all online active learning and community-based educational experience. Next slide, please. The curriculum is broken. When we go through the fundamentals of the curriculum, this is what we're teaching in the first year. It's the heavier year in terms of credits. We have what we call 3 foundational courses, which all students will take. And it's one in community health. I'll tell you a little more about each of these. one in health system sciences, and one in learning strategies, or what we call the professional strategies, what you need as a professional to be successful. In addition, we have 2 tracks, one for those going to medical school who feel they need it, and those who are going either seeking employment or have a strong background in basic science. The medical school applicants will receive an introduction to basic sciences. It's called an introduction to the life sciences, and also to MCAT preparation. That's a year-long program. Those students who are going from graduation to employment or feel they already have enough preparation in the basic sciences will go through a track really focused on community medicine. And we have two areas that we're focused on there: nutrition in the first semester, and then precision health and the future of community medicine in the second semester. All students will go through, excuse me, let me go back one. Yeah, all students are going to take in their first year, will be in the community 1 day a week. And we have a series of courses that are taught in that context, but it's all designed to help you understand the community and develop both an analytic and an anecdotal understanding of what the healthcare problems are in that community, and also what is driving that, what are the sort of major contributors to that. And by that, what we typically mean are things like institutional racism, sort of inequality, issues related to housing, to public safety, to food availability, transportation, education, things of those nature, the so-called social determinants of health. Next slide, please. The second year is a little lighter in terms of total credits. We have the 2 foundational courses. One is what we call, it says here direct to consumer, it should read direct to community healthcare, which is really using the technologies available now, the sciences now, cell phones. How do you reach directly to communities with solutions to healthcare issues, given the emerging science and the emerging technologies for analysis and decision support? So that's that program, and that's a year-long course. And the second is on motivation, change, and leadership. And then there's a second year capstone, which is in the first year, you define what the healthcare problems are in the community. And then the second, you pick one and you develop and actually implement an intervention to try and improve the health status in that community. Next slide. Let me go through in a little bit more detail what we emphasize in the curriculum. The first thing are the basic sciences of community medicine. That's what we call them. And here they are listed: health and illness prevention, quantitative analysis, health systems, innovation, behavior and motivation, and then the studies of the determinants of health that I list there: socioeconomic conditions, policy and law, racism, inequality, and lifestyle. Next, please. We are trying to develop and really build your capabilities in 2 critical areas. We call them the habits of mind and habits of heart. And you see these laced through all of the courses in the curriculum. For example, in habits of mind, I don't know if you all are familiar with a writer named Daniel Kahneman he won the Nobel Prize in economics for behavioral economics, but he talked about habits of mind. It's how we actually approach problems as a habit. And he talks in terms of your critical thinking skills, your creative thinking skills, your communication skills, and your ability to interact with others. We call those the habits of mind. And in addition, we have what we call the habits of heart, which have to do with decency, how you relate to people, what ethics you bring to that that interaction, what kind of biases you bring, what kinds of openness do you have in your relationships with others. The second thing is resilience, the ability to continue scrapping if you run into obstacles, whether it's in your education, in your personal lives. What kind of ability do you have to continue scrapping, continue fighting to get what it is you need to get done? And lastly is maturity, the ability to learn how to roll with the punches a little bit, because obviously as you get into these situations in the communities, they often are difficult ones. And it takes a lot of balance, a lot of maturity to be able to continue working and continue focusing on what you need to focus on to get things done. Next slide. Now the courses, I'll just go in through these quickly to give you an idea of what we cover in each of these courses. In community health, which is one of the foundational courses, we talk about these issues. What are the major health problems in any community or in the country? Why do they happen? What's the evidence to support these conclusions, and how reliable is it? It gets you into talking about what data sources we have. How do we track these diseases? How do we know about them? What resources exist in the community to build on that can respond to them? And how can we prevent them or reduce their impact? We start with infectious diseases in the first half of the year, and then go to the chronic diseases in the second year. Next one. Health systems management is really designed to help you work effectively in a system. And we teach you really three things. One is how to organize, manage, or understand, develop, and manage budgets, how to organize and implement projects. And then we teach you about the science of quality improvement, which is a tool, an analytic tool for really identifying and then improving on problems through collection of data and analyzing the data. It's a very common technique used in healthcare. Next slide, please. In the direct-to-consumer care, community care, next slide, please. What we do is really work for, try to develop your skills to be able to work effectively in a community and get information from a community about what problems the community is facing and what solutions they're looking for, what kinds of things would be helpful. And then to build responses, how you build responses to that in terms of technology, how do you apply the science, how do you apply the decision support? So for example, if I have diabetes, what are the sorts of things that would be helpful that I could have in my hand that would help me take care of my diabetes so I wouldn't have to go to the doctor as often? So what we want to do is determine what's been tried, how they've worked, what do the consumers need and want, choose the problem to address, create and test the solution, and adapt and improve it over time. It's a whole process for building innovation, bringing innovations into communities that rely more on technologies and on the emerging science in healthcare. Next slide. Next slide, please. What we focus on here is really motivation, change, and leadership. How do you motivate people to change their behavior, or motivate people in an organization to change what they've been doing? How do you organize and support the change? The whole lot of things around just getting it done. And finally, how do you lead and how do you follow effectively inside an organization and in a community? We want to teach you the skills of leadership, basically. Next slide, please. Under learning strategies and support, as we call it, or professional skills development, we really focus on three things: trust building and ethics, the sort of personal characteristics that we expect of a professional. We talk about communications, and we also really focus a lot on how you learn. How do you study effectively? How do you learn? What are the strategies for learning complex information? And we do that at the same time we're providing tutoring and individualized support for you. As we say, we like to demand a lot of the students. We expect a lot of you, but we also want you to succeed. And we want to make sure we have in place that you have access to the support systems you need in order to be successful. Next slide, please. In the Introduction to Basic Science programs, this is really the language, the principles and content in what might be called the basic science courses or pre-med courses that many medical schools require. We actually have very limited requirements to come into the master program. A 2.8 GPA, no required courses, no necessarily or required major, and no required standardized tests, no GRE. We want to cast a wide net, and then for those anxious to go on to medical school, provide what you will need in the basic sciences or the life sciences that will get you ready for medical school and also prepare you for the MCAT. Next slide, please. In the community medicine side, for those going in the employed track or who don't need this, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about, or we're going to be teaching in nutrition and health, and then precision health and community medicine. How scientific advances are really going to change the way we work with communities to improve health over time. Next slide, please. In the capstone one, I mentioned you're in the community, and this is really where you're building the skills that enable you to gain trust and to collect the stories from individuals, families in their homes, and also find and interpret relevant data and build a story about what the problems are in that community, what the healthcare problems are in your community. Now, every student is expected to be in a community, to have a community site. And if you can't find one that is acceptable to us, we will help you get one. But it is basically a place where you will be going on one day a week, but it's the place which really gives you the doorway into the community. There's not a lot of work that we're asking you to do that is in that site per se, but rather to use that site to help you be introduced into the community so that you can carry out much of the work that we're asking you to do in the capstone. Next slide, please. Capstone 2 is you choose an intervention, and we're asking you to pick an intervention that's upstream from the medical problem that you've identified. So, for example, if you have a problem with diabetes, you might want to choose an intervention that has to do with nutrition, for example. Or if you have hypertension, you may want to choose an intervention that deals with ability to walk and do exercise, or obesity management, things of that nature. So choosing an intervention is critical, and then building the community support for that intervention and designing and implementing the intervention. Those are all skills that we help you build. And then how you create and maintain momentum and stay on track. And then finally, how you evaluate it. All of those are skills that we'll be teaching in that second year capstone. Now, we do have a project that we ask you to do, which is a summing up of it. It can be a thesis, it can be a photo essay, it can be a piece of artwork, it can be a short story, it can be a novel, it can be a piece of music, it can be a play. It's however you tell the story most effectively of what you've tried to do and what you've tried to accomplish in the community and what you got done. So we're very open about the form in which your report takes. We're much more interested actually in the process you go through to work on designing and implementing your intervention. Next slide, please. That's really a quick overview, very quick overview of a curriculum that is quite intense. I would say one more thing, and that's about what we're doing to design the curriculum and the way we teach. I mentioned that it's online. I don't know how many of you have heard of something called the Minerva University, but it was probably about the time you were applying to college or thinking about college. Minerva University was coming online. It's a private liberal arts college that's all online. It was designed specifically to be online. And the reason we did that, or it was done, was to prove that online education could be as effective as being in class. And secondly, to bring a whole new way of learning to undergraduate education. And I guess the third reason was to do it at a cost that was disruptively lower than what it costs to run a liberal arts education. And so the Minerva University has been very successful at doing that. The founder of that is helping us build the curriculum for our program, the master's program. So what we have is a very deliberately designed online education that puts a lot of the work of being educated on yourselves. So we give you a lot of problem-based learning. We give you a lot of matters that you have to go searching for and problems that you work on solving amongst yourselves. The faculty are there for facilitation purposes to help you learn, but not to do the lecturing and the dumping of lots of information on you. In fact, we have a limit on the length of time any lecture can last, and that's 12 minutes. All the rest of it is active learning. We don't want experts coming and walking into the room and dumping a lot of information on you that you then memorize and dump back on us in exams and then forget. That's not good learning. It turns out it's a very poor way to learn. And so we're using active learning principles and doing it online with probably the world's expert in designing those kinds of programs. So we're very excited about the curriculum for this program. It's quite innovative in both content and in approach. So let me stop there and see if you have questions. I'm glad to answer any questions you have about the program.
You all are welcome to unmute yourself or raise your hand so we can have you share your question live. You can chat it as well if you have any trouble right now connecting, but we'd be happy to hear from you.
So jump in. What do you got? What are questions? I see everybody's muted. I don't know if that's by your own hand or what, but please jump in. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll try and see you as we scroll across the the people who are here.
I'm having some trouble with my camera. It doesn't want to connect, but I had a question about the synchronous sessions. Are those every day, Monday through Friday, or do we know yet approximately how many hours per day, just so we can figure out if it's feasible with our employment and such?
Yeah, it is not feasible with employment in the first class. We're asking you to be a full-time student in the first class.
Okay.
But we are planning to start a class in January, and we'll be running that in the evenings. It will be the same program, but it will be for people who need to work while they're going through the master's program. This first class, remember, this is the first class we've done of it. That's why we're subsidizing, we're providing a full scholarship for students who are accepted, because you really are partners in refining the curriculum that we've created for this program. And we want to make sure it's right, and you're going to help us do that. So we're asking really that you have no diversions, or as few diversions as possible with work. Now, it may turn out that you will find that you can handle the workload and still work, or you can handle the academic load and still work. But it's not our intent to have you do that in the initial phase. Now, later on, we may be able to find a way to do that, but right now, we're not advising that. And so the other answer to your question is classes are every day, and on Friday, you're expected to be in your community site carrying out the work of the capstone. Other questions?
Yes, I have a question regarding the clinical site. So does this include like a hospital or a clinic, or is it more like a community public health like office?
It is more the latter. It is a federally qualified health system, for example. It can be a community clinic. It can be a social services agency, or a program like a nutrition program or a housing program. We're less concerned about the content that is taught or that is going on in that site than we are in getting an introduction into the community from that site. So we're not using this as an opportunity for you to tail around after somebody doing, wart removals. That's not our interest. Does that answer your question, Arturo?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I received a question earlier today I could ask, and if the students here, that might help them. But a lot of students, I think, receive a cumulative GPA as well as a major or science GPA if they're a science major. Are you looking at a 2.8 overall cumulative GPA as the requirement?
Yes. Yeah. And that's we don't have a science GPA requirement. And I think it's worth explaining why, Lexi, that to the students. We think that the work of being in the community as a community medicine specialist is extremely difficult and challenging work. It's also wonderfully rewarding, but it's difficult. And it requires a level of comfort with uncertainty and ambiguity, sometimes with conflict. It requires a level of emotional intelligence. It requires a level of comfort in that community. And we think that is a different set of capabilities than whether or not you've done well in organic chemistry. And that's why we're not looking for any particular major or any particular prerequisite. We're looking more at you as a student and trying to make an assessment of how well you're going to do in our kind of program, and long-term, how well you're going to do working in communities that are our target communities, the underserved and underrepresented communities around California or elsewhere. So that's why we're not focusing on STEM graduates necessarily. It doesn't mean you can't get in, but we're not saying exclusively STEM, exclusively pre-med, that sort of thing. And it's also why we're not having a requirement for a pre-med or basic science GPA as a separate one from our basic one. We're really trying to get a very varied background of students into this group, because we think that's what it takes to be successful in a community. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Samantha?
Yes.
Go ahead,
So
Samantha.
I'm not sure. Okay, so since there is no prerequisite or major requirement, would you just like our transcripts from undergraduate school, or would you like, if we attended a junior college, do you guys want those transcripts as well?
Well, sure. I mean, I think the more information, the better for you. If you came from a junior college and then came on into, got your baccalaureate degree in a CSU, that's great. That's great for us to know about. But mostly it just tells a story of your pathway. And that's really what we're trying to understand more than anything else. It's not to say you're a good student, you're a bad student, you're this or you're that. It's much more about what was your pathway to get to where you are at this point applying to this program. So yeah, I'd love to see those transcripts, you know, and if it's not what you want me to see or want us to see in terms of you didn't do too well in the community college, but you did better in the baccalaureate program, great. You know, what that shows me is you've learned and you've gotten better and you've shown grit. Because believe me, when we come out of high school, we don't all do really well the first year in college. Give you an idea, I'm a doctor, I'm an MD. You know, I've been in good positions in my life. I had a scholarship in college from my first year, an academic need scholarship based. I lost it because of my academic performance my first year of medical or undergraduate school. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to do well. It took me about 2 years to get my feet under me in college before I started doing okay in my in my undergraduate coursework. And even then I had to take my medical school prerequisites in the summer school because they were too hard in the college I went to, and there was too much competition and they were nasty competitors. They weren't very nice people and I didn't like them. And so I didn't do well. In fact, I got told by a couple of teachers in medical or in undergraduate, don't go to medicine. You know, you don't have what it takes to go to medicine. And so, you know, I'm looking for people who, you know, who may have had to struggle a little bit to get to where they got to. That's a good indication of how well you're going to do in the community, because it's often a struggle to get the support you need in a community to do these things. That's a long answer, Samantha, but thank you for setting me up for that one.
I appreciate it.
Other questions?
If you're a
Susie?
senior and your GPA isn't quite 2.8 and you have 3 classes and are working very hard to get A's in them, can you still be considered?
Yes. Yeah, I don't, you know, we're making it up as we go along. So we said 2.8, and that seems to be a reasonable amount. But look, we're going to look at each application and try and decide what the story is behind it, what you know, what you struggled in. You know, you may have had personal issues that got in the way for a period of time. All of those things are things we're trying to take into consideration. The 2.8 is kind of it's an arbitrary cutoff that we've established. And I've got to say, you know, we'll probably follow it, but we've got to be flexible about this, especially in the early years, till we know who we have applying and how well you do downstream. You know, we're trying to be really a little bit path breaking in this and a little bit groundbreaking in this, and be as flexible and open as we can in terms of the kids we take in, and then we'll see how you do. You know, and as I said before, our goal is to help you succeed. So, you know, if you get in and are accepted, why, we want you to be a successful student. So we'll do everything to help you, everything we can to help you do that.
Dr. Lawrence, I have a question that was sent to me in direct chat, and I wanted to get it answered for the entire group. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is this program a feeder to KGI's medical school? So if you can explain that a little bit, please. Sure,
Glad to. Thank you, Monique. The answer is yes, but we don't have a medical school yet, and we won't probably for several years. So right now we have, I think the number is 14 other medical schools who are affiliated with our program in what we call a Council of Medical School Deans. And they have joined our council because they're interested in the students we're going to be admitting. They are trying to diversify their own student bodies in their medical schools. And for those of you who know or have looked at this, most medical schools are under intense pressure to be more diverse in their student bodies, both and their faculties. Now, some medical schools, you know, if you're Harvard or Stanford or some of the others like that, you have so many applying, you can pick and choose among them and really build a class that's actually relatively diverse. They also have a lot of endowment, so they can avoid heavy debts and so on. But they're the few among the medical schools. Most medical schools don't have that luxury. And so what the ones that have joined us are interested in our student body, and they love the ways our students are being prepared, and they think that people who come out of our program trained in community medicine, coupled with their training that they're providing in clinical practice, will be outstanding doctors, really outstanding community-facing doctors, especially in primary care. When we have our medical school up and going, and we don't have a date yet for that, it's a fairly long pathway to do that, by the way. But when we're up and going, we'll be a 3-year, not 4-year medical school. We will accept almost all our students will come from this master's program. We aren't going to be widespread and saying you all come and you all apply. We really want students in our program who have graduated from this community medicine program. And we think, as some of the other deans do, that this is a unique training for a doctor, and more consistent with the kind of training you need to have to be a doctor going forward, to be really grounded in the community, to be really effective in understanding where it is who the community is you're working with. So it's going to be a 3-year medical school. We'll be doing it with community sites around Claremont and the KGI, rather than building our own hospital and having our own clinics. And we'll also be setting up some residency programs so that there are opportunities post-medical school to continue with your training in a philosophy and with values very consistent with what you get in the master program and also the medical school. Other questions?
Hello, Dr. Lawrence. Oh, you can go ahead.
Hi, Jessica. Oh, Sarah, there you are. Yes. I was looking at Jessica's camera on the camera. That's why I said Jessica. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, good. Jessica, you can go ahead.
No, that's okay. Let's go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I had a bit of a specific question. I'm a public health major currently, and so the curriculum doesn't include some of the pre-med course requirements. And so I was curious that if I were to go the medical school track with this program, would that be sufficient to then apply to medical schools after that? Or would I first need to complete those pre-med course requirements and then enter this program?
Well, let me put it this way. A number of medical schools are moving away from pre-med requirements, but many still have them. So what you do by not completing your pre-med requirements in the traditional way, you know, the classic pre-medical sciences, is you reduce your choices of medical schools, but you still have many choices, like the ones that are in our Council of Medical School Deans. Because we're not, the medical schools who are associated with us are saying that the program that we provide in the life sciences, the introduction to life sciences, and the preparation for the MCAT is what you need in order to be able to get into the medical school, their medical schools. So not every medical school requires the pre-med sciences. Almost all of them require an MCAT. And to do adequately in the MCAT, or at least score at a high enough level to be considered, you have to have a good preparation in those basic sciences, which is what we intend to do in our introduction program in our master's degree. Now, that's a long roundabout way of saying, we'll give you the sciences you need to be able to apply to some medical schools and to perform on the MCATs in such a way that you'll be qualified to apply to those medical schools, but you won't necessarily be able to apply to every medical school on your wish list, because some will want to know what you did with the basic sciences, what your GPA was in those basic sciences, in addition to the MCAT.
Okay, thank you so much.
Does that answer your question, Sarah? I know that was a long answer.
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my question was, how and when do we receive acceptance and denial letters?
Oh, well, be positive. You know, when do you get your acceptance letters? You know, right? No denial of, right? I wish there weren't any such thing as a denial letter. So you're right to ask it. But we will let some of you know that you've been accepted as early as the end of March. We are not going to fill the class until later in the spring. And because we know that there will be others who will be applying and maybe miss the March 15th early deadline that we've set. That's simply to help us identify who gets in the first tranche. So we will be notifying another group of students probably in later in the spring. I'm not exactly sure when, honestly, but as soon as we can, because I know that other plans need to be made. The other thing is that if we don't think that you're qualified for this program or that it's not a good fit, what Lexi does and what the admissions office does is talk to you about other options at KGI, because there are like 10 or 12 postgraduate programs in the master's program. And there's also a PPC, a post-baccalaureate program, which is a more classic one of just basic sciences to get your GPAs up and get you ready in your MCATs if you didn't do well enough in college for, you know, going the classic route, not our route, but the classic route. So we'll give you counseling. We're not going to say you're no good, you're out. That's just not what we do. It's a fit issue oftentimes. And, or we'll say, we think it's going to be a too big a struggle for you, or it's not a very good fit given your personality, you really are interested in becoming a cardiac surgeon. That's probably not the best pathway to you know, come through our program to do. We're more interested in primary care and community-based practice. So we'll try and let you know as soon as we can. That's again, the long answer, short answer to your question. As soon as we can let you know so that you can make your plans. We don't have definitive dates yet for any of this. We're just sort of making it up as we go along. I wish I could give you a better answer, Jessica, but that's what I got.
Thank you.
Other questions?
When does the program actually start? And when would you actually start the first capstone project, like if accepted?
The program is probably going to start the last week or the last couple of weeks of August. We will start, if we can, depending on COVID, we'll start with an orientation at Claremont that we will pay for you to come to if it's a problem, you know, with travel and so forth. So, and then you'll be back in wherever you're living, where you are and where your community site is. And that will start right away. We'll expect you to come into the program with your capstone or with your community site picked and ready to go, because you're going to start in week 1, actually, after the orientation. You'll start doing some work in the capstone every Friday. Okay, and that'll continue throughout the year, except in the summer, and again, picking up in the second year. So we expect you to have your capstone. We expect to approve it and help you find one if you're having trouble finding one. Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal in terms of it has to be this, absolutely fit this particular criterion. We just want it to be as I say, a doorway into the community. We want there to be a preceptor in that site who's going to be kind of helping you facilitate all the things you need to do, like meet people in the community and work in the community and so on. And this is a big deal for a lot of people. I mean, what I mean by a big deal, it's a new thing to have to work on instead of just following somebody around in a clinic, for example. This is more, you know, you're going to have more opportunities to get information, to go out and talk with people, and that requires trust, and it means somebody has to introduce you who is known in the community. So we're going to help you do that. We're not expecting you to do that all by yourself. Does that, Karina, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I did have a question, Dean Lawrence.
Sure.
So I actually spoke with Courtney Handel, who was the CSU representative who kind of connected, because I know this this program came in the middle of, I guess, just the semester for me as a student.
Yeah.
But for my personal question is, I'm actually a double major right now, and I did speak with Courtney about this. I am technically a senior in one of them and a junior in the other. I still have one more year left at my school. And I just wanted to know, typically, I know that application cycles, I just wanted to know how it went if for like a regular school year, because I know this one was kind of in the middle of a school year.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, since I spoke with her, and I think the best option for me as a student would be to wait until I was completed with my degree officially. I just wanted to know when the next application cycle would be, because I know, I'm guessing everyone here is probably going in for this application cycle, just so that I know for future applications.
Ah, boy, that's a good question. We haven't said,
Sorry.
Alexi, come on, help me out here. I don't know the answer.
Sure.
What do you
Yeah.
think, Lex? What would you think it'll be?
We typically open all of our programs in the RIG school on September 1st. Every year we open up our application September 1st. So I imagine MSCM will be included in that date. If for any reason that's different, we'll be sure to send an email and let folks know, but I imagine we'll choose September 1st. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, Dean Lawrence, that would be for the spring 22 and the fall 22
Absolutely.
start dates. And spring would be for full part-time folks that are working, and fall would be for folks that are going to come full-time.
Yeah.
So you'll have a very long window of opportunity to apply.
Yes, because I spoke with Courtney, and she has stated if I had some clinical experience, that would change my, I guess, my application, if I wanted to go ahead and give her a resume with like my work experience, as well as how I'm doing in school and all that transcript application process. But for me as a student, I just thought that it would be best for me to just wait until my actual school cycle was completed,
Sure.
so that I did get my degree in, so that I'm currently a health science major as well as a biology major. So yeah, I was just interested in the program overall, and I just wanted to sit in with you guys, even though I wasn't applying this application
Well,
cycle.
and it's better, I mean, my advice to you is exactly what your advisor said too. Enjoy the undergraduate experiences. I mean, and take as much from that as you possibly can. I know it's hard. I know sometimes you have to be working, and it can be financially difficult. I don't mean to deny that, but if you have the ability, take the opportunity to breathe and enjoy when you're in the undergraduate experience, because every step you take after this is going to narrow you a little bit. And that's what the whole purpose of being trained in a profession is. But it's sure, I'm envious of you being able to be an undergraduate right now and be able to explore and try different things. Take your time.
Thank you.
I have just a little
Other
bit-
questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you have another question, Monique?
No, I just wanted to do a quick.
Oops, I can't hear you. It's fading.
Can you hear
a little.
me?
Yeah.
I wanted to do a quick introduction. I'm sorry, I'm having tech issues, everybody, so forgive me. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Dr. Monique Williams, and as Dr. Lawrence mentioned, I'm the new program director. And I just want you all to know, similar to what Dr. Lawrence shared, my pathway to my career was not a straight path, but we really are dedicated to supporting you through this process, which is why we eliminated some of the barriers that you will normally see trying to get your way either through medical school or to a health career. And so we're just really excited about this process. We look at you all as future colleagues, and we really want to make sure that you're prepared to serve the community in a very productive way and to give back and pay this community service forward in the health careers. So please don't hesitate, if you have questions after this information session, to reach out to KGI. We'll do our best to answer any questions at that time. But just know that we're looking forward to this first cohort really helping us build this curriculum together and supporting how we're going to pay forward to the next cohort and the next cohort and generations behind us, okay? So thank you so much.
I want to just say that one of the things that Monique and I have talked a lot about, Dr. Williams and I have talked a lot about is mentoring and being available to support you as you go through this master's program. Because we, as I said, we ask a lot of you. We expect a lot of you in terms of the amount of energy you give to it and the amount of time you spend on it. It won't be a walk in the park. And it shouldn't be. It's going to be demanding, but we will help you we'll do everything in our power to help you succeed. And that includes being there for you and mentoring you and being available with whatever sorts of help that we can provide to just make it possible for you to focus on this experience and do well in this experience. That's what we're after. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question. You mentioned that during the summer, I know we're not in session, so what would you recommend us do during the summer, like internships, or like what kind of skills would you want us to work on?
I don't know what the answer is to that. I think probably the best thing I would say is, as you go through the first year and you're working with advisors and mentors and so on, I think the answer to that will begin to emerge. Part of it will be based on interest and, what are you interested in? What would you like to get a little more experience in? How much time is there between the end of the classes in the spring and then to start again in the fall? We're talking about the possibility, we won't do it in the first class, but there's really an urge to try and get the year continuous so that you're going to school the whole time and you get it done quicker. I don't think we're going to do that in that first class, but it's certainly something we think about later on, which would take away the question. I mean, basically you'd be in school getting everything done and then you'd go to work. But insofar as we have that time off in the summer, I think the best answer would be working with your tutor, mentor, and with the faculty of the program and seeing what's going to give you the most help and how can we help you find it so that you get the experience that's going to make you a better clinician. It's going to depend.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I had another question. I know you went over it earlier. Just to reiterate, the course the course load curriculum will be full-time, 5 days a week?
Yeah, well, 4 days a week will be in the synchronous courses at wherever you're taking them. And then the 5th day you'll be in the community setting, and we'll be teaching a synchronous program during the time you're in that setting, but you'll also be doing other pieces of your work that are assigned for that community setting. So that's why we'll be teaching those classes while you're in that community setting on that Friday. Otherwise, you'll be in class Monday through Thursday. And then, as I say, Fridays in the community.
Okay, thank you for repeating that for me. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question, is this a quarter system based or semester?
Semester.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dean Lawrence, another question. Are you able to speak on the pathway to med school a little bit more? I know that there are the Council of Deans that you guys work with at KGI, but I know that the 1 year you're going to help those who are interested in med school to go into preparation of taking the MCAT. But how does the little, I guess I just wanted a little road pathway to see how it works.
Sure. Well, it's really a great question. And so what we're doing is the first year is giving you the academic background and the professional skills development. And at that point, at the end of that, we then will be in a position to counsel you about whether or not medical school is the right choice for you. So we expect to do that in a couple of ways. One, we'll do that ourselves through the teaching and tutoring program that we'll have in place. But we also have a career center at KGI that helps you with some of those choices. What are the other options available in Lexi's department, in the admissions department, in the student services area? We have capability of counseling you about other choices so that you're not just fixated on being a doctor. There are many ways to be of service in healthcare that are extraordinarily valuable. And KGI has many of them that are available in their program. So we will help you decide whether or not medicine is in your pathway, the right pathway for you. And then the second thing we'll do is to help you understand what the medical school options are. We have a post-baccalaureate program at KGI, and they're about, I don't know, what is it, Lexi? Something like 60 to 70 students a year in that program. And we're helping them get to medical school. We have a whole program that, helping you with the applications and doing all of the nuts and bolts about getting the application ready and so forth. Ours is going to be a little bit different than the PPC, the post-bac program, because we've really divided the programs into two. The PPC is a traditional way to get into medical school with pre-med courses, a basic science GPA, and focusing on MCATs. And it's the traditional way that some medical schools are still requiring students to go. The other way is a more innovative way, which is saying, we don't have prerequisites, or we're not too firm on them. We're really doing holistic admissions. And we want to look at where you are, who you are, where you're from, what background you have, how you did academically in school. But we're not so fixated on GPA from undergraduate years. We're not so fixated on having an MCAT of 520 or 530 as being able to get in. We're interested in you as a person, and that's the kind of doctor we want to train. So we are in that latter category, but we'll help you figure out, say you're a biology major, as you said, in health sciences, you've got the biology background, you've got some of the basic sciences already built, you may be able to apply in both pathways. But what's happening in medical schools is they're really dividing. There's some that are lowering their requirements for the MCATs, for example, relying less on those. They're certainly doing away with a lot of the prerequisites. The more traditional and sort of, I would say, most highly competitive medical schools to get into are still using the more traditional ways of screening people, GPA in the pre-med sciences, MCAT scores, et cetera, and clinical, how much clinical exposure have you had doing volunteer work and things of that nature. But those are the more traditional medical schools. They're also the hardest ones to get into. So there's a real change occurring in medical education. It's becoming more flexible. Part of the reason, which really benefits you, is that, I don't know if you know that, but the step one of the medical licensure exam, which occurs after year 2 of medical school typically, has always been graded until last year, and now it's pass-fail, or maybe 2 years ago. So what that means is, how you perform in basic sciences is no longer as important as it once was, because how you did in your pre-med sciences and also in the basic sciences in medical school was a very strong predictor to how well you did on that step 1 exam. And that was important because your grade on that step 1 exam used to be how residencies decided whether or not you were competitive with other candidates. Now it's gone. It's a pass-fail arrangement. And so medical schools are kind of freer now and doing more innovation in their curricula for dealing with the basic sciences, integrating it into the clinical preparation, doing a lot of very innovative things in the way they're dealing with all of these things. We're seeing a real shift. And so in a way, you're kind of caught in the middle, but you're also at the point where the world is really very different and becoming more and more different in the pathways you have to go down to become a doctor. Long answer, but I'd also say that probably more than at any time that I've been in healthcare, the opportunities for someone to have an impact in healthcare are really quite variable. It's all over the map, besides being a doctor. Becoming a doctor is the longest, most arduous, and most expensive way to have an impact in healthcare. And it's only one. There are, when I entered medical school, there were I think there were recognized something like 20 professions in healthcare. There are over 200 now. So there are lots of ways to have an impact.
Thank you. Oh, I did have a question for Lexi. Is there financial aid opportunities as well for admissions?
Yeah, all of our master's programs do have scholarship and need-based aid available. And also, I believe this program, Dr. Lawrence is working really hard to try and build up an endowment so we can have additional scholarships, because we're really hoping to attract students that have maybe traditionally been under-resourced. So this program may have more scholarships even than some of our other programs, but we do have those options available. And we have some two financial aid advisors that you can chat with if you have specific questions about your own either FAFSA application or your own need, your own scholarship options. They probably won't be able to give you a specific number until you've actually applied, but they could help talk you through some of what we do have available. But yes, long story short, we do have financial aid. The only programs that you really struggle with financial aid, unfortunately, are post-bac programs at KGI as well, because they're considered fifth year undergrad. It's really dependent on which loans you took out as an undergraduate student and then what you have still available. So we can still help you with those, but it's a little bit more challenging to get aid for a post-bac.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have time for one more. And I would say, as you're thinking about that, if you have questions, as Dr. Williams said, please send us your email, just email us. You can email the admissions office, you can email Lexi, and they get to me, they get to Dr. Williams, and we'll try to answer your questions quickly so we can, keep you in the loop and keep you understanding what's going on with our program as well. But we really invite your application. We look forward to it. And as Dr. Williams said, we're very excited about the program because it's not only doing something very unusual in education, but it's also very exciting in terms of creating a new kind of healthcare professional, an advanced community medicine clinician, and you're ready to go to work, and you're ready to go to medical school when you get out. So it's pretty exciting. So we hope we see your names pop up in the applicant pool, and we look forward to talking with you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.